Hey guys, so one take here. Just want to make sure that this thing's running. Yeah, we're running and live. So I'm going to be talking about Valparaiso, Chile in this episode. It was the first destination on my current South America trip. I'm just going to start with the airport. I mean, getting to Valparaiso was quite the journey because I don't speak any Spanish, and it was definitely something I'll remember for a while. Same exact kind of shock I had to my system when I arrived in Lima last time, but this time, instead of being overly optimistic about how much I could see in South America, I was really being overly optimistic about how much people would have spoken English down here in Chile, in Santiago, especially at the airport. I really thought there was going to be a lot of help there. Turns out nobody really spoke English that I was looking for, and I needed to get to Valparaiso and there was no direct bus, so I ended up having to get a bus into the city, which I kind of blindly just jumped on a bus to San Borja because I kept seeing signs for San Borja everywhere and the price seemed reasonable. It was like $4 Canadian to get there, so I just assumed that was going to be the major bus terminal down in Santiago. Turns out it was, so I get to San Borja station and I find the bus for Valparaiso, and usually I thought you could just pay the bus driver right there and he'd give you a ticket and give you some change and on you go. But because it was a major bus station, I actually ended up having to go inside to this huge bus terminal and find the bus company that was going to be going to Valparaiso. That wasn't too difficult, but it definitely was an immediate challenge that I noticed right when I got into Chile, and that's kind of what triggered the entire process of what I ended up experiencing in Valparaiso. So I'm down here, I'm working, and I'm traveling at the same time. So most of my days in Valparaiso were spent working in the hostel and on my little Skyroam wireless router in the streets, in plazas, at coffee shops, at bars, things like that, just to kind of walk around and see the city. After I work for an hour or two, I'd take a 5-minute walk, go find another location that I found was pretty cool. And I spent a lot of time in the old city in Valparaiso where there was wonderful street art everywhere, and Valparaiso, really, like, that part of Valparaiso was just amazing. It really felt authentic, and it felt like there was definitely a place where a lot of artists come from, a lot of creative people, and you could really tell that the culture was very alive. Like, there was a lot of dynamic things going on within the city, and obviously there's good things and obviously there's bad things that come along with that, but just generally speaking, the people were very alive, very engaged with what was happening around them, and that was just one thing I really noticed right away. And so I guess I spent the first weekend, I wasn't working, and I just spent the weekend accommodating myself and really just chilling out on the beaches locally because I had really a long couple days and I wasn't feeling too well when I got here. I had kind of been sick on my travels to Chile. And so I spent one afternoon just hanging out on the beach, and I remember I'm just sitting there hanging out on the beach, reading my book on my Kindle, and taking a nap, and then all of a sudden I just hear all these noises kind of come out of nowhere, and I was like, what the hell's going on? And I wake up and I see like red and blue and a ring, and it's like those circus ribbons that people will do aerial tricks on, and like a circus ring that people will climb up on and spin on and twirl on the ring. And these young Chilean people from Valparaiso, I guess, were spending the afternoon overhung on this boardwalk. So basically I was hanging out on the beach here, and there was a boardwalk that kind of overhung the beach, so that created some shade. And these kids, or these teenagers, they were probably like 17, they hung these things over, so they just dropped down. I woke up and they're making all these noises, giggling and laughing, and I was like, holy crap, like that's how I woke up, and I was like, this is crazy. And I just sat there, and I had no idea how to speak Spanish, so I just said like hola, and they were just like kind of ignored me, which is reasonable because I have no idea how I was supposed to interact with them, and they don't really speak English. But I just sat there reading my book and kept looking out on the ocean, and these guys were just playing around on their ropes and on their I don't know what you call them, like it's like linen that hangs, the drapery and the ring. So it was really cool just like being there with those guys and just watching them do their thing. And it was just a really kind of a special, spontaneous moment, and that was definitely one of the most notable things that happened that weekend. And then I just spent the weekend like chatting with people in the hostel, and trying to find somewhere where I could learn Spanish, because it turns out all the Spanish classes that were in Valparaiso, there aren't many, and they were all very small and they were all booked out. So I really had no idea how I was supposed to get Spanish lessons, because that was like the primary reason I was going to Valparaiso, was to see Valparaiso, hang out, be there for a week so I could get like a foundation of Spanish. And it definitely took out to be a challenge, because I ended up having to basically go to the university, talk to some people, or like, you know, basically make myself look completely out of place, and figured there'd be some exchange students there, maybe someone would teach me Spanish. And it turns out there's a professor who lives up in the old village who teaches people Spanish from time to time. And so that's where I ended up getting his contact information from WhatsApp, and I messaged him, and he didn't speak really any English at all, like maybe 5% English, 95% Spanish. So his Spanish was really good, but his English wasn't. And it turns out that's basically what I ended up doing all week, was I would work and I would go to these different places, and I would go to this guy Alberto's Arturo's his little patio, his studio, I guess, his studio apartment up in the old village. And I would learn from him, and over time I got a little bit better, poquito poquito, hablo español, and from there I just started to have a connection with this guy, because we'd spend two hours every day together, just chatting, going over the basics, and then just having conversations. I would diverge here left and right, and I got to know him a little bit, and it turns out he was a famous Spanish poet. He's won awards, many awards, Spanish poetry awards. He knows Noam Chomsky. His friend, who still is alive in Valparaiso, an older friend, was really good friends with Pablo Neruda. So I started hearing all these really crazy stories, and I know some people might think, oh, like, he's probably just blowing smoke up your ass. No, like, I saw photos of him and Noam Chomsky. I saw photos of, you know, his friend and him and his friend and Pablo Neruda, like, you know, hanging out on the beach and things like that. It was really just such a cool experience to not plan to speak Spanish at like a formal school, and then just kind of have this just serendipitous kind of experience happen. It was really cool to make a friend out of him, and an older friend, but I mean, we definitely connected over the 4 days that I learned Spanish from him. And on the last day, we were reading some of his poetry, and then I started talking to him about my music and me being a bit of an amateur artist, and so I ended up grabbing his acoustic guitar and playing a guitar for him. So I'm hoping I can connect with him and get that video uploaded onto this posting as well. Me just playing one of my songs, or a couple of my songs, in his studio apartment. It was super fun. I had such a good time in Valparaiso, just getting to know that whole space for a week and kind of getting an idea of what the vibe was like in that city. And I really remember another moment was on Wednesday night. I decided, I was working really long hours, lots of going on at work right now, and so I decided I was going to go to this jazz club, because they told me there was going to be jazz music there on the Wednesday. And so I sat there and I was like, okay, this is great, I'm going to get some jazz music in. I'm going to bring my Skyroom, my little wireless Wi-Fi maker into the jazz club, or the jazz restaurant where they were playing jazz. And I got a seat, and I was looking around. It's a pretty small restaurant. I'm pulling my laptop, I'm working away, and I started thinking, like, I don't know where these guys are gonna put the jazz musicians in this tiny restaurant. And there wasn't really any room. And then all of a sudden, I was working, and all of a sudden these guys come in with their instruments: saxophone, a bass guitar, a little amp, and a snare, and a snare, a hi-hat, and and another cymbal, and they just set up like right there, like 6 feet away from me. Not even, like, I could have like touched the bass guitar neck while they were playing. Like, they were interrupting the flow of the restaurant. It was like, holy crap, this is such a cool experience. And so I was just sitting there, and these guys were just shredding the guitar, shredding jazz music, saxophone coming in and out. And I was like making direct eye contact with these guys, like clapping them on after every song, and then going back and working, and, you know, drinking some wine and champagne throughout the evening while I was just there for about like 2.5 hours listening to this live jazz music and working. And I was like, that was kind of where it clicked. I was like, this is such a cool experience. I really started connecting with like this idea of working and traveling, and maybe not doing that all the time, but it was definitely showed me a new opportunity to be comfortable working in a restaurant like that. And actually I was getting a lot of work done, and obviously I was in a really great state of flow. I was listening to live jazz music. I usually listen to jazz music when I work anyways, so it was just really cool to experience that in Valparaiso. And other than that, I mean, yeah, like I said, these are one-take videos, so I'm in Santiago. I'm just here for the day, and I'm going to be heading to Concepcion for a week after that, so you guys can stay tuned for that video. But it's really what I've been up to for the last week down here in South America, has just been getting assimilated with the culture, learning Spanish, because it was really important to learn Spanish. And they even my professor, he gave me this book. So this is like one of his poetry books that he's been keeping for a while, and he was going to write poetry in it, or doodle in it, and he ended up just giving it to me, and he told me to just basically write my basic vocabulary, and then my basic verbs and questions here. And so I'm carrying this around to make sure that I'm not relying so much on Google Translate to help me get through all my travels here, because I think that just takes away from the experience of what I'm trying to accomplish here. I really want to make myself feel at home here and learn to speak the Spanish language. And I know Chileans speak very difficult Spanish, but I mean, just the basics, getting better every day. As my professor says, just like poquito hablo español cada días. So a little bit of Spanish every day, and eventually everything will get a little bit better. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to run now. It looks like there's a bunch of people walking by, but that's just timing, I guess, of what's happening. So ciao. We'll see you guys next time, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video.